What God expects of a husband: if you love Jesus, you must love your wife in this way. You can be a good husband in the eyes of society. Hardworking, faithful, paying every bill, never betraying her. And the woman beside you can still feel like a stranger in her own home. Why does that happen? That is the contradiction many husbands never notice. They provide, they work, they sit in church, they pray before meals, while the sound of forks touching plates fills the silence between two people who no longer feel seen. Ephesians 5:25 does not tell husbands to merely stay married. It says, "Husbands, love your wives, as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." That kind of love is not built on convenience. It costs something. It bends the ego. It stays awake when selfishness wants to sleep. I have seen men become deeply committed to being respected, while forgetting that love is not proven by authority alone. A woman can live beside a man who speaks about God often and still feel emotionally homeless. That is the danger, because a marriage rarely collapses all at once. It erodes through small neglects that nobody names out loud. And somewhere beneath all of this is a question many husbands avoid because it is uncomfortable. Does the woman you love experience your presence as safety or merely as responsibility? Number 1, the chair at the end of the day. A marriage often reveals itself in ordinary evenings. Not anniversaries, not photographs, not the moments uploaded online. Real marriage lives in the sound of keys placed on the kitchen counter, in tired footsteps across the floor, in the sigh someone releases before speaking. A husband may believe love is obvious because he works hard and remains faithful, but many wives are not starving for proof of commitment. They are starving for tenderness. That is difficult for some men to hear because responsibility feels measurable. Tenderness does not. You can count hours worked, you can count bills paid, but you cannot easily measure emotional presence. And because of that, many husbands slowly retreat into tasks instead of connection. It feels safer there. Yet Jesus never loved people mechanically. He noticed them. He stopped for them. He listened before correcting. In John 11, before raising Lazarus, Jesus stood near Mary and Martha and wept with them. He entered their grief before solving their problem. That matters more than many men realize. Some husbands only speak deeply when something is broken. Everything else becomes logistics. Did you pay this? What time is that appointment? What do the kids need tomorrow? Meanwhile, the woman beside them begins carrying invisible loneliness while still sharing the same bed. I have done this before without noticing it immediately. It is possible to remain physically present while emotionally withholding yourself. And after enough years, a wife no longer complains loudly. She simply becomes quieter. Not because everything is okay, not because she suddenly feels safe. She stops because she has stopped believing her voice still carries weight with you. That silence is dangerous because men often mistake it for peace. But peace and emotional resignation are not the same thing. When she stops speaking, it is not because the room has healed. It is because something in her has started to die. A garden that is no longer watered does not scream. It browns quietly. It goes still. It forgets how to bloom. A godly husband does not merely reduce conflict. He creates warmth. He becomes someone whose presence lowers fear instead of increasing distance. That begins in ordinary moments. The chair beside her at the end of the day. The phone turned face down. The willingness to ask a question and remain there long enough to hear the real answer. Number 2, the trap of "I'm just being logical." Some men use logic the way others use armor. They are proud of it. They call it maturity. They call it clarity. They call it being reasonable. But sometimes logic is not wisdom. Sometimes it is emotional laziness. Sometimes it is a shutdown. The room changes when they enter it. Not because of violence, because of pressure. Every conversation quietly bends toward their opinion, their frustration, their standards, their timing. And if their wife reacts emotionally, they immediately become analytical, detached, superior. They call it logic, while the woman beside them feels emotionally cornered. But logic cannot heal a heart. It can organize facts, it can defend a position, it can win an argument. It cannot sit beside a woman who is crying because she feels alone and make her feel safe again. Many husbands use logic not because they do not care. They use it because they feel powerless in the face of their wife's pain. They do not know what to do with it. They do not know how to fix it. And when a man believes he should be able to fix everything, pain starts to feel like failure. So he retreats into facts, into analysis, into what can be measured. He thinks, if I cannot repair this, then I am failing. And to avoid that feeling, he chooses fact over feeling. Fast, clean, safe. But that is not love. That is avoidance wearing a tie. You can win in every argument. You can prove yourself right 100% of the time and still lose the relationship completely if the price is the silent pain of your wife. That is the hidden cost. The debate is over. The damage is not. When your wife is crying because she feels alone, listing what you have provided is not logic, it is cruelty. She does not need an accountant. She needs a husband. Pause. And if that sounds harsh, it is because the truth is harsh when it is finally spoken plainly. Many husbands do not use logic because they are cold. They use it because they feel powerless. A hurting wife can make a man feel useless. If he cannot solve it, he feels like he has failed. So he reaches for facts, for analysis, for anything solid enough to. We use logic to build a wall between ourselves and someone else's pain. We want to win the argument so we do not have to lose to our own weakness. That is not strength. That is a clean escape from discomfort. Scripture never describes Christ's leadership as domination. Philippians 2 says Jesus emptied himself and took the form of a servant. That is the pattern. Not loudness, not intimidation, not constant correction disguised as wisdom. A husband who always needs to win eventually teaches his wife that honesty is unsafe. That is one of the saddest transformations inside a marriage. A woman begins editing herself before speaking. She measures her tone carefully. She rehearses harmless sentences in her mind before bringing them into the room, because experience has taught her that vulnerability may be punished instead of protected. And many men do not notice they are doing this because their anger rarely looks explosive. Sometimes it appears as coldness, silence, sarcasm, a sharp exhale, a look that communicates disappointment before words even arrive. I once heard someone say that some husbands become spiritual judges inside their own homes. They know how to quote truth without carrying the gentleness of Christ. That sentence stayed with me because it exposed something painful. Biblical language can still be used selfishly. 1 Peter 3-7 tells husbands to live with their wives in an understanding way. Understanding requires humility. It means you stop treating her emotions like inconveniences that interrupt your comfort. It means listening long enough to realize that beneath frustration, there is often exhaustion, fear, or loneliness asking to be noticed. Sometimes the strongest thing a husband can do is not to fix, not to explain, not to produce a perfect answer. Sometimes the victory is simply this: sit there, stay there. Do not run into dry facts to escape her pain. A husband who loves Jesus does not weaponize leadership. He uses strength to make another person feel safe enough to unfold honestly. Number 3, the garden you keep watering. Affection rarely disappears suddenly. Most marriages dry out quietly. A neglected garden does not scream while it dies. The leaves simply lose color one day at a time. Dust gathers near the window. The conversations shorten. The laughter becomes rare enough that both people remember it afterward. That is often how emotional distance enters marriage. Many husbands assume love should remain alive automatically after vows are spoken. But covenant is not maintenance-free. Even in Genesis, God placed Adam inside a garden to work it and keep it. Love also requires tending, attention, repetition, intentional care. Small things matter more than men sometimes realize. The hand placed gently on her shoulder while she washes dishes. The text message sent in the middle of a difficult afternoon. The willingness to notice exhaustion before being asked for help. Songs of Solomon speaks with unusual tenderness because biblical love was never meant to feel emotionally barren. Some men secretly believe emotional attentiveness is weakness, but indifference has destroyed more marriages than softness ever will. I think many husbands underestimate how deeply women remember atmosphere, not luxury, atmosphere. The emotional climate of the home, whether kindness lives there, whether tension enters every room first, whether affection only appears when something physical is desired. And this becomes deeply spiritual because the home quietly teaches everyone inside it what love feels like. Children absorb it, wives absorb it. Even the husband himself becomes shaped by the environment he keeps creating. If Christ is truly at the center of a marriage, then love cannot survive only as a statement. It must become visible in habits, in patience, in eye contact, in gentleness after difficult days, in apologies that are not defensive. A healthy marriage is rarely built through dramatic moments. It is usually built through repeated small mercies that slowly make two people feel emotionally sheltered again. Number 4, the cross before the conversation. Every marriage eventually reaches moments where love stops feeling romantic and starts feeling sacrificial. That is where many husbands panic internally, because sacrifice sounds beautiful in sermons until it touches pride. Suddenly, the issue is no longer theology. It becomes interruption, inconvenience, ego, fatigue. The quiet desire to preserve yourself instead of laying yourself down. But this is exactly where the image of Christ becomes unavoidable. Jesus did not love the church when it was easy. He loved through misunderstanding, betrayal, exhaustion, and suffering. And no husband is being asked to carry a cross perfectly, but he is being asked to stop protecting selfishness as if it were wisdom. Some men withdraw emotionally whenever they feel criticized because they experience correction as failure. Others become harsh because vulnerability makes them feel weak. Yet real strength is not found in emotional distance. Real strength stays present. I have seen marriages change when a husband finally stops defending himself long enough to truly see the woman in front of him. Not the argument, not his frustration. Her. Sometimes she is not asking for perfection. She is asking to stop feeling alone. Colossians 3:19 says, "Husbands, love your wives, and do not be harsh with them." That word harsh reaches further than yelling. A man can be harsh through neglect, through emotional absence, through making a woman feel perpetually burdensome for having needs at all. The cross reshapes a husband by teaching him that love is not merely about authority. It is about surrendering the part of himself that always wants comfort first. And strangely, that surrender does not weaken a man. It makes him trustworthy. Number 5, the house that learns your voice. Every home slowly memorizes the spirit of the husband leading it. There are homes where the moment the husband walks in, laughter cuts off. Children drift quietly toward their rooms. The wife starts replaying every sentence in her mind before she says a word. That is not respect. That is fear. Pause. The children know it before words explain it. The wife feels it before conversations define it. Even the walls begin carrying a certain emotional sound. Some homes feel heavy the moment you enter them. Others feel calm without trying to impress anyone. That atmosphere is rarely accidental. Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." Notice that Scripture does not say harsh words only affect arguments. They affect atmosphere. A husband's voice can become either shelter or weather inside a home. That is why loving your wife biblically is not mainly about grand gestures. It is about consistency of spirit. The tone you use when tired, the patience you keep when stressed, the way you speak when nobody else is watching. And this is where many men must confront something honestly. A woman should not have to earn gentleness from the man who vowed to protect her. A full house is not the same as a safe house. A full house can have expensive furniture. The TV can be on, people can be coming and going. It can look alive from the outside, but a safe house is different. It is the place where the woman can see your shadow at the door and finally let the mask fall. "I'm fine." Gone. The shoulders drop, the breath comes back. She knows you are really there. In a safe house, she does not have to guard every sentence. She does not have to perform the role of the strong wife when her heart is breaking. She can be weak, tired, even unreasonable, because she knows you are a refuge, not a judge. A full house may be full of things. A safe house is full of presence. That is the difference. When Jesus washed the disciples' feet, he revealed that godly leadership kneels before it demands. It serves before it speaks loudly. A husband who truly loves Christ will slowly become recognizable by the safety people feel around him. Not perfect, safe. And the difference matters. That kind of man apologizes without needing to preserve his image. He notices emotional distance early instead of waiting for collapse. He learns that strength without tenderness eventually becomes frightening. And he understands that spiritual maturity is not measured by how many verses he can quote, but by whether love remains visible in the way he treats the woman closest to him. Conclusion: taking off the armor at the door. Long after arguments end, something remains in a marriage. The dishes eventually get washed. The house becomes quiet again. A lamp glows softly near the hallway while another ordinary night settles over the home. But beneath all of that silence is a deeper question every husband leaves behind through his presence. Did the woman beside him feel cherished there? Not managed, not tolerated, cherished. Strength is not measured by how much pressure a man can carry without breaking. Real strength is gentleness. It is the courage to leave the armor at the door and walk into the house with nothing to prove. Think of your front door as a holy threshold. Before your hand turns the knob, stop. Just for a second, take one deep breath. Let the weight of the outside world fall off your shoulders. Then step in, not to be served, but to soften the atmosphere of your home. Do not walk in with your phone in your hand. Do not walk in carrying the office into the living room. Do not walk in with those sharp little logic knives still in your pocket. Walk in empty-handed. Walk in as a student. Walk in ready to learn again how to love the woman God placed in your care. Pause. Walk in empty-handed. That moment matters. Turn the knob like it is a switch. Before the door opens, switch off problem solver mode. Switch on listener mode. Leave the world outside. Bring only yourself inside. Tonight, when you come home, do not bring the armor of exhaustion inside with you. Leave it at the door. Do not wait for a fight to start fixing what has gone cold. Start with her voice. Listen to the sigh she tries to hide. Pause, stay there. Let the moment slow down. Then say, "I'm here, talk to me, I'm listening." That is not weakness. That is leadership. And do not wait for conflict to begin the repair. Start tonight. Listen to the sigh. Sit down. Stay. Sometimes the greatest spiritual leadership of a man is simply refusing to leave his wife alone inside her pain. Loving your wife the way Christ loves the church will require more than discipline. It will require tenderness strong enough to survive pride. It will require slowing down long enough to notice the loneliness hidden behind her silence. It will require the kind of humility that kneels before God before trying to lead another human being. And maybe tonight, before sleep arrives, the most spiritual thing a husband can do is simply place his hand gently over hers at the kitchen table and let love become visible again in the smallest possible way. Write this in the comments. I will love her with gentleness, not just words.